Mr. Livio Tedeschi, the President Agricultural Solutions BASF. We are meeting in Warsaw.
Yes.
After a long time, you are here again in Poland.
A pleasure to be here.
Yeah. We are in October, last days of October, and the whole October was rather warm. Yes. What is the sign of today's challenge for the farmer? Because climate changes are almost the biggest problem for farmers now, not only in Poland, but also in Europe and the world.
Yes.
How the company like BASF would like to help farmers to meet those challenges and to keep the productivity on the farms?
First of all, it is a pleasure to be here in Poland for multiple reasons. I think Poland has been very influential on European agriculture. Over the last years, we had a Polish commissioner for agriculture in Europe, Mr. Wojciechowski, who is now handing over to Mr. Hansen, and there will be the Polish presidency of the European Union. And obviously, the topic of agriculture is very high on the agenda of the new Commission, and we really hope that Polish politics will help to support the big topics in developing agriculture. So you mentioned the warm climate. It is indeed very warm. I came over from Germany, where I'm based. It was very warm as well. And honestly, I'm traveling in a lot of countries these days. And whenever you arrive, you face a situation of unusual weather patterns.
Yes.
And it is drought, it is floods. Floods have been affecting heavily Poland as well earlier on this year. And a lot of people think, okay, this is just the proof of climate change, and think about how agriculture could help to solve the issue of climate change. But we also need to think about how farmers are being impacted by climate change. And this is by sometimes not being able to crop anymore what they've been used to grow over the past years, or they are faced unprecedented pests outbreak or disease outbreak and have to face them.
The main problem is in our country that we have to face the drought problems.
Yes.
And especially in the central and western part of Poland. Many years ago it was every 7 years, every 10 years, and now we talk about it every 3 or every 2 years.
Yes. So what you're asking is what BASF is doing to face that. We work on two different areas. On one side, help transform farming to continuously reduce CO2 emission. On the other side, helping farmers to be more resilient in this time of high weather volatility and uncertainty. And then let me spend just a couple of words on the two areas. So when it comes to reducing the impact of climate change and reverting climate change, hopefully, we are developing a series of technologies which go from optimized application of inputs through digital and precision farming. And we have got our Xarvio program assisting farmers to optimize the inputs, choose the right time of application, reducing amount of chemical inputs needed on their farm, but also powering technologies like variable application of fungicide and herbicides. And we are selecting varieties with high ability to utilize nitrogen. We are helping those fertilizers and avoid decomposition with several technologies. So the objective is to produce a ton of harvest with low CO2 or up to
to keep
carbon
the
neutrality.
productivity on the field.
Absolutely.
And with less resources used for that.
Less resources, meaning not only less chemical inputs, less water, and less of everything, but keeping productivity high and helping reducing climate impact.
In your opinion, which steps are the most effective at the beginning in this process?
I would say it is really a complex system approach, because every step is connected with production of CO2. Soil preparation and seeding are two steps which can never be impact. Soil preparation in terms of tillage practices and fertilization, as well as seeding. But of course, I think it would be meaningful to speak about CO2 emissions per ton of produce, and hence productivity plays a very, very important role. And it is important that we do not think as one technology in isolation, but the whole system approach, which oversees all these different steps and combines them together to achieve the best result.
Only the combination can give
Yes.
you a good effort, and especially when we talk about fertilization, so we need a good analysis of the soil, and then to bring as much fertilizer as is needed for the plant in the time.
As little as needed. And this is very much possible through digital and precision farming. And I think the industry and BASF can produce a lot of technologies to support farmers in this direction. What we need, and it is a very important time with the new commission settling in, that we create a framework for rapid adoption of these new technologies. I think the last 4 years we have seen the focus on reducing or eliminating common technologies in the market. I think we need to shift this focus on promoting the adoption of innovative technologies like, for example, digital farming.
Especially in Europe, we have the Green Deal, and we have the farm to fork strategy and biodiversity, and we should reduce the use of fertilizers and of chemicals. So do you think that after those few years of implementing new agriculture policy, we are on the good way, or we are still very far behind?
I think we are on good way in industry, farming, and authorities sharing the same vision of transforming agriculture. We are not on a very good way in the progress which have been obtained, because so far I think we have focused too much on reduction targets and too little on transformation targets. And this is always a combination of available technologies, but also system of funding of those. And I think I mentioned digital and precision farming. Perhaps we can add new genomic techniques, which will help enormously to advance breeding and face climate change. And I think it will be very important for the new Commission to focus on how can we allow farmers to adopt those transformation technologies more rapidly and ensure an economic viability on farm, which will create an additional pool for those to be adopted.
Of course, those new technologies are available, but they are expensive. And we have in Europe rather the model of family farms, and especially in Poland, we have not so many big farms which can afford those expensive investments. So what would be the solution for the middle-sized farms to meet these goals?
I think as a company, we always think that everything we do on farm has to go hand in hand in profitability for farmers. And this is why the topic of productivity is so important, because you can have a higher investment if you have a promise of harvest which carries a yield premium. This is why everything we do is always compatible with the yield premium we are going to allow. And this system can obviously be complemented by perhaps an evolution of the Common Agricultural Policy, where the amount of payments made in connection with new technology can be increased, or the proportion of payment which goes on the foundational support to farm can be shifted more towards transformation.
So in your opinion, it is not enough support to push the progress in the transformation?
Yes, I believe that, and I'll tell you for 3 reasons. When it comes to climate change or carbon farming, we see that a lot of food processing companies are declaring as targets to want to achieve an enormous carbon reduction or carbon neutrality by 2030. And for that, they will need agricultural produce, which is also produced under low carbon emission. But it is very unclear whether there will be a premium paid to farm to allow for the change of farming practices. Also, the market for carbon credits is not well regulated. It is not providing
Everybody is talking about regenerative farming and about carbon credit, but at the moment there are not so many places where farmers could sell those
Absolutely, and the value is still very low. This is why I think at the beginning of such a big transformation, a framework of support will be extremely important, but also perhaps even easier, a regulatory framework which will allow innovation with impact on climate and CO2 emission to be brought to the market more rapidly would be very advantageous.
But as we told that emissions are not only in the hands of farmers, but also on the...
Well, by far not only in the hands of
of course.
Yes.
And because it's only 9% in total value of emissions, but of course the production of fertilizers, production of maybe chemistry not so much, but fuel and so on, it takes a lot of energy and it causes also a big footprint on CO2 footprint.
Absolutely, and what you say illustrates how today we can only have more of an ecosystem or value chain approach. So if you want to pursue the dream of having carbon neutral meat produced or carbon neutral grains or vegetables, then we need to work alongside a very complex value chain and very complex ecosystem, because it starts with production of inputs, farming, processing, food processing, supply chain around it, and then retail sales. And I think at the moment we look with our policy and regulatory framework into very particular steps, but not at the whole system in general. I think a big collaboration in this ecosystem will be really paramount to achieve that.
Of course, very important for the productivity and economic of production is the crop protection.
Yes.
We see that also in the last years we have every year less active substances. As I heard, you can correct me, it's now 150 active substances in agriculture available. So we have problems in the weed control, with fungicides control, with insect control. What will happen, and what is also your solution in this area to control all the risks and pests on the field?
So it will actually not take you much. So you can spend just 2 days talking to farmers in a couple of European countries, and you will immediately see what they have to report. A lot of areas it is impossible to crop usual crops like wheat or oilseed rape for various problems, either resistant weeds, which are a huge problem, like black grass in northern regions of Europe, or flea beetle or pollen beetle for oilseed rape. And these are problems which cannot be managed any longer, because some of the solutions or technologies which were applied before have been revoked. And now, what is the new approach? First of all, we are using a continuous innovation model. So BASF is developing new solutions. We have just launched one for black grass control. We'll bring a new insecticidal active to face some of the pest problems. And this will never stop. But we need to have a system which balances the amount of substances and technologies which are taken away from the market and the amount of innovation which is brought in. If that doesn't happen, European farmers will be highly disadvantaged on the global scene. And Europe has a huge role to play in global food system as exporter of quality products, but the trend we are seeing will really prevent European farmers to be competitive on a global scale.
Is the solution one spraying smart spraying system? What you offer is one of them?
This is for sure one of the systems, because it allows to preserve the biological activities of a lot of active. You are talking about variable spraying. We have developed system to support variable application of herbicides and fungicides, and they allow to reduce, for example, herbicide applications up to 70% while maintaining the biological activities. And we have a joint venture with the company Bosch, and the system works with cameras distinguishing wheat from crops, and then the system supporting the selection of quantity and combination of up to 3 herbicides, spraying directly with precision valves only the weeds. So this system is exceptional, but there is no regulatory framework to have that move to the market on a fast way. So sometimes we are lagging behind between the technology development and the framework development, which would allow a fast introduction to the market and a support system to support the adoption. So I would say we are on a good way from a technology point of view to address a lot of the issues. A combination of a system of incentives and a regulatory framework with focus on transformation rather than elimination of current technology will make us make huge progress.
Last years, the problem is that there are not enough new active substances on the market. Yes. So are we on the creative border or a limit that we cannot create new chemicals?
No,
and
I would
how
say...
can we deal with, for example, fungicides to keep the resistance
under control? I would say there are not enough substances in the European market. On the European market, very different situation in other regions. So I would say that this is not a problem that the industry is not investing enough in new technologies, chemical technologies, biological technologies, but the combination of fast revocation of current active ingredients coupled with very, very high hurdles and delays in the system to register new generation substances is creating this disbalance. And this balance is not present in other geographies, and this creates a disadvantage for European farmers.
And very important is also the new formulation of some crop protection products
yes.
Because due to the weather changes, we need a small window to put it on the field.
So you due to weather change, you might have a very small windows to when it is meaningful to apply substances. And what we have done recently, we've introduced a really innovative fungicide called Revysol, which, by the way, received approval 3 months before the expected date, showing how much effort has been put on the regulatory profile of the active and how advanced it was. But one criterion in the development of this active ingredient was to allow for a broader window of application and allow for a balance of preventative and curative activities, so that it is too windy or if it is rainy on the day when you should apply, farmers can have additional days before and after without losing of biological activities. So climate change, regulatory changes, these are new engine for driving innovation, and BASF is making full use of that.
We have every year more biological products, and what is the future on the big area crops? Because we know that in some greenhouses they are doing quite well, but some problems are on the open surface.
I believe, also knowing what is out there in the industry, that we are far away from biological crop protection product to be able to deal with every solution on every crop. And I think is not the right approach to compartmentalize agriculture and say organic agriculture, conventional agriculture. I think in a time where we have an increasing amount of problem and less technologies, we should select the best one to address a problem, no matter if it is biological or not. We are heavily into the segment of biological products, looking at biological fungicide, bioinsecticides, stimulants and inoculants to optimize use of fertilizers. So we will continue to go on this area, but we see it for the time being as an essential part of integrated approach to pest management.
Yeah. Sustainable agriculture means also to use the best breeding and the best progress in breeding. We know that in Europe we still discuss about new genomic techniques, and they could speed up the progress in plant breeding. What is your opinion? Will it come, and what would bring the system to the breeding?
I think very positive development I've seen in the European Union has been the openness towards new genomic techniques. And I think especially when it comes to climate change, breeding can address a lot of issues. They go from higher tolerance to a range of diseases or pests, or higher adaptability to climate variations. So if we want to maintain productivity high, we will have to work heavily on speeding up breeding, speeding up introduction of new technologies, biological, chemicals, and digital, and supporting farmers in adopting those and incentivizing the adoption. And this range of technologies, I'm very confident, will allow us to produce food with lower impact on the environment, lower emission of CO2s, and maintaining high the value of quality and productivity of European farming on a global scene.
Of course, Europe is not willing to allow planting GMO plants like both Americas do, and the production system is much more easier, and we could say simple. But with those new genomic techniques, we could have some results in the varieties that would help us. In which area you see the biggest need to speed up the progress?
So first of all, I am fully with you. I do not see an openness to GM technologies, and I think every geography, every region has got its own right to decide on what kind of farming they want to have. I do see that speeding up new genomic techniques will provide a good way forward in the breeding area. And I think particularly efforts both in specialty crops or in field crops, being wheat, being corn, or being oilseed rape, will be advancing significantly agriculture. So at BASF we are also working on new wheat technology, with wheat being one of the most important crops in the European Union. And we are looking at all these aspects of optimized use in combination with chemical inputs, reduced tolerance to a lot of diseases, higher ability to utilize nitrogen, and high yields. And I hope in the next years we'll be ready to bring this new technology in wheat to the market as well.
One very important thing is biodiversity.
Yes.
And biodiversity, for us in Poland, with a small structure, we can see, well, it's not as big issue maybe like in Western countries with big farms and the monocultures. But anyway, we have to do something with biodiversity, also to convince society that we are farming in the proper way.
Yeah. So you mentioned the biodiversity strategy alongside the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork, which is 4 years ago. I would say that BASF has been paying attention to biodiversity for a much longer time. In fact, we have a network of farms, or sustainability farms, who have been investigating the evolution and the number of species and the population in each species present on fields and alongside fields which were operating conventional agriculture or biological agriculture, and monitoring the evolution over time. So we have a very, very good set of data showing that it is possible to run responsible farming with focus on productivity and biodiversity at the same time. And again, it is about the combination of technologies used to achieve the result, but farming productivity is not in opposition to biodiversity. It's a system which goes hand in hand, and in fact, biodiversity pollination are a tool to make farming possible, because so we've been visiting orchards here. With no pollinators, you have no harvest. So that's one aspect which has to be managed for sure.
You think that biodiversity is the task for the on the farm level, or local level, regional, or maybe a country problem?
I think it's a broader concept, and my personal experience with a lot of projects we have done focused on biodiversity has revealed that sometimes it is a financing challenge which we see along the system. So we have operated in various areas, biodiversity projects, allowing farmers with measured impact on species population or different species per hectare. But we always come to a problem when produce coming from fields with high focus on regenerative practices and biodiversity is placed on the market at a slight premium. And then it is very difficult to see consumers being prepared to pay the premium. So again, it is a question, how do we want to fund transformation and how do we want to incentivize adoption? Because it cannot be that the only party making investments are the industry and farmers. And then
the other will not pay anything for that.
The others are not prepared to support the transformation of a food system that everybody enjoys.
The transformation in direction sustainable agriculture for food security is the huge challenge, and for many farmers it's not good to understand. So what do you think? What should we do to convince the majority of farmers to go in this direction and to meet those challenges for 2030, to reduce the CO2 emission, and maybe by 2050 to be CO2 neutral, and to produce enough food for almost 10 billion people in the world?
See, now, please allow me to disagree with you. You said that food security is a topic which is not very present in the mind of a lot of farmers. I would say it is very present.
It is present. I said only that to combine all the sustainable production and transformation is not easy to understand for farmers and to put in the practice.
But so then we agree, because I think latest with the war in Ukraine and the COVID pandemic, it has become apparent to everybody what is the importance of food security. Now, about the complexity of tools, technologies, regulations to get there, it's interesting that a lot of companies operating in the IT world are seeing farming as one of the most interesting applications for artificial intelligence. And one application in particular is allowing farmers to decipher the huge regulation with which they have to comply, and knowing whether they have to stop the sprayer at a buffer zone, or when to do that and when to do what, has become so complex that it might require artificial intelligence to support farmers. So I think farmers are doing everything they can to manage complexity, and they need a way to be supported by perhaps less complex regulation and policies, and an ability not only to transform their farm with the adequate amount of support, but also to see a market which is valuing the efforts and valuing the produce which is coming in a different way out of the field.
In Europe, we have very high requirements, and we even now are discussing about Mercosur trade agreement, and that's something what farmers totally not understand and do not agree with that. So we have to see that our level of production, our costs cannot be the track for the farmers.
Yeah. So I think now you are opening up another chapter.
I'm closing our remarks.
The chapter of trade, which is a very big one. But I would say one thing. Now, the Mercosur agreement you have mentioned, I think, is just one example of how complex is the food system, because it involves imports and exports. So I think we do not have the time to debate the appropriateness of opening up towards other countries. But today, our diet could not be sustained by Europe only if you think about tropical fruits, coffee and tea and bananas. So we are part of a broader system, we might like it or not, and we need to perhaps have a broader openness to collaboration with other geographies, being South America, Asia or North America, and find a way to have a high competitiveness of farmers so that they will be naturally able to compete in this broader environment.
In Poland, we know what does it mean to have the access to a free market, because our agricultural exports had a record value last year, so it's almost 52 billion euro.
Yes. So it's been a pleasure to meet you, and I really wish you all the best now. It is planting season for the next season, so I wish really a good year to all Polish farmers, and I wish Poland will contribute also on their European presidency to support European farming in general.
Thank you very much, Livio, and it was a pleasure, and we wish
My
you a good
pleasure.
transformation and helping farmers
Thank you very
in
much.
this process.
We'll be there
Thank
to
you.
support.
Thank you.
Thank you.